God, right in the face, right in the face. Oh, jeez. That's like at least 30 or 40% blocked.
That's definitely not good.
Welcome back to the shop. I'm Jason, and right now I'm in my 2021 Model Y Performance. This is Rosie, by the way. Today, we're gonna tackle a maintenance item that I guess I never really thought would be a maintenance item on a car, but given that EVs don't technically have a lot of maintenance items, what you tend to focus on is anything that is going to affect their efficiency and or their range.
Operating at maximum efficiency.
And one thing that affects efficiency when you live in the desert is how freaking hot it is and how hard the car has to work to cool the inside down. Now, one of the determining factors to how hard the car works to cool it down is how well it's getting air through the front of this giant vacuum scoop. And you can see here, I've got some leaves and debris and stuff in here already. And when I look up in there even further with a flashlight, it's pretty well packed out with all sorts of debris. Being that this car has no other opening on the front end except the vacuum port, it's sucking all of the air and debris, there's my goat lock, air and debris through the front of the car and packing in the condenser, which is the primary mode of cooling for our AC system, which is going to affect our range and efficiency in the long run. If you didn't know, Tesla is fantastic with the idea of open source. And I didn't know until recently when I bought this car, that was one of the determining factors for me as a home mechanic to buy this vehicle. All I had to do was type in Tesla Model Y service manual. And you can see right here, I've got the actual service manual available to me for free. And when I go up here into the search bar, I can just type in radiator, and right here, clean radiator comes up. When I click on that, it takes me to the service operation and everything that I need to do to actually clean the radiator, or in this case, it's an AC condenser. The first thing we're gonna need to do is get this car a little bit off of the ground. If you're working at home, you're probably gonna have limited availability to get the car very high, so your best bet is gonna be a ramp such as this one that you can get the front end up to gain access underneath. In my case, I have a 2-post lift, so I have lots of options. If you're gonna use jacks and jack stands, these lift pads are gonna become very important. You see, these go right up into the battery itself, which is where you lift the car from. And if you don't put these in, you stand the chance of running your jack up under there, hitting the wrong spot, and killing your battery, which is definitely something you don't wanna do. Take a look down below on my Amazon links. I'll have the favorite accessories that I've bought, including these, down below. Reading ahead in the repair manuals, there's going to be a couple of things that we need to do to prepare the vehicle for service. One of those will be service mode, and then we're going to be disconnecting the 12-volt battery system. Whenever you disconnect the 12-volt battery system, it says to roll down all the windows, pop the rear doors open, and put a shop towel over the latch so that the doors can't close, leaving you locked out of the vehicle. Okay, so to put the car in service mode, we're going to go down to software. We're going to click on our Model Y. Then when we release, you gotta hold it long enough. There it is. We're gonna type service.
You forgot a C.
I forgot a C? C-E. Okay. Now we're in service mode. The next thing that we're gonna need to do is go back over here to our home screen, go to safety, and we're gonna scroll down to the bottom here, power off. This is going to make sure that our HVAC system is completely powered down as well, so that we don't get any inadvertent actuations while we're up there. Are you sure you want to power off? Place foot on brake to turn power back on. Boop. Now everything is going to shut down, and in about 30 seconds the car will be ready for us to work on. Our first step under the hood is to get this upper apron off. There are 14 clips in, around, and across, and you just got to pull. And when it comes to large plastic panels like this, I'm a big fan of trying to pull as close to the clips as possible, because if I just pull over here, I run the risk of it pinching and folding in on itself. And I will be hitting each one of these with a little bit of silicone dry lube when I'm done. That way they go back together super easy. And of course in the background, I'm going to be cleaning everything as it's coming apart. I always recommend clean car is a happy car. So while you won't see me cleaning everything, just know that I'm going to be cleaning everything. To get our tub out, We have one little plastic clip holding our washer fluid reservoir. If you have the HEPA filter, you'll have to take that assembly out. My car is early enough that it doesn't have that. So a little pry bar tool or clip removal tool, get underneath the lip there and then pop up. These are 10s, and there should be 2 clips on either side holding the rest of the tub in. Seem like they've come apart pretty simple. Now, I will remind you, I'm clearly not a Tesla service tech. Already forgot something. I'm gonna be learning along with you. I forgot the light right here.
Does it pop out?
Yeah. Unless I can get to it from this side, disconnect it, you can. So we've got a connector on this side we need to take out. I can see somebody else has already been here. Pop that out.
Lots of insulation. That's good to see.
Yeah. Pretty dirty in here. So these are the little things you don't want to forget when you're going back together. Our next step, now that we've got everything opened up in here, is we're going to disconnect the negative terminal on the battery. You can see we have positive here, positive, negative. So we're going to use another 10 mil. We'll loosen that up. And then to prevent any accidental reconnection as we're wiggling around under here, I'm going to throw a rag around our cable. In this corner over here, after disconnecting the 12-volt battery, we have our first responder loop that we need to disconnect. And my phone is beeping away. So first things first, we have to pull back this red locking pin. Pull that back, and then we can push down to unlock it. And this is going to disconnect 12-volt power to the vehicle. We'll give it 2 minutes before we try to unplug anything else to make sure that everything is turned off. To make things easier on me and for you to be able to see as I'm getting into these fenders, I'm also going to pull off the front wheels. I'm going to use a plastic tool here to try to pop our cover off. Just has a little clip inside. And then these look like about 21s. Let me see what size they are. All right, we got our 21. And my cameraman is a little surprised that I knew what that was. But when you've worked on cars for like 25 plus years, eventually you start to see what size things are. He asked me, well, what size is this? And I look at it and I go, 13. Nuh-uh, it's a 15. Nope, that didn't fit. Ah, it was a 13. You'll get used to it. That's tight. I like to always get a hand on a wheel. That way it can't fall, hit my caliper, hit the rotor, or hit anything along the way if it's going to pull free.
Fancy red.
When I was in college, I worked in a tire shop, and damaging calipers was exactly the last thing you wanted to do. So always be careful. Underneath, we've got 2 panels to remove. We have our center panel here, and then our forward unit there. This one has a bunch of 10 millimeters and 2 15 millimeter nuts. All of these 10 millimeter bolts are held in with Loctite, and it says to replace the Loctite in the instructions. I'll leave that up to you. I've taken this off once to inspect already. I didn't put Loctite back on it. I plan to replace this in the future with an aluminum panel, because right here at the back of the panel are our coolant fittings going into the battery, and I'd like as much protection as possible. Now, mind you, this car has made it 84,000 miles. The previous owner used to drive back and forth from Salt Lake City to Phoenix, so it's been through a lot of different adverse weather and different conditions, and it looks this good. So is that aluminum panel needed? Well, probably not. But could it be a fun video for me later? Yeah, I think so. And because these have Loctite on them, I'm not using an impact gun because I don't want to accidentally break one or gall the threads or anything like that. If you haven't jumped on the M12 or M18 Milwaukee bandwagon yet, tools are pretty awesome. I have links to all these tools in my Amazon store. My link's down below. With our center panel off, we can get this front arrow panel. We've got 3 push pin clips on both sides here. There might be a bolt in there in the corner. I got to double check the instructions. We have our pedestrian speaker up here that we're going to get disconnected. And then a couple more, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more push pins up here in the front. So we just got to pop all these out. and see what else we can come up with.
Why did they even make them push pins? Like, just do screws.
Screws would have made a lot of sense. I think this has got something to do with aero or something. One little opening here where you can get your tool in. And I prefer a trim removal tool like this to be able to pop this kind of a pin open. Here's where things are going to get a little tricky as you're trying to pull this front cover off. In the corners, there is a nut on top of a bolt right here. And then inside there, there's two clips pushing down from the top, and the same thing on this side, even though it's dark. So we need to get a 10mm wrench in here to get those, and I think the easiest way to get in there would be to loosen the fascia here or the inside of our fender liner to be able to reach in there easier. There it is. Locking tab's kind of difficult to get to. This red lock tab has to get pulled backwards in order to release the lock on there. Now the speaker isn't going to be stuck up in there as we're trying to pull this apart. A bit of a struggle to get these. There we go. Sorry. They're going to be a lot easier to put in than they are to take out, that's for sure.
Did it break?
No, they just come apart.
Nice.
All right, more dirt and debris under here. So I'm also going to be pulling the bumper, even though it doesn't say anything in the directions. It looks like I'll get a lot more access to the front of our condenser through here. Plus, I've got this one front sensor that has been pushed in, and I'm going to try to correct that once I get the bumper off. To get the bumper off, though, we have to remove this fender garnish that runs across here. So you got to get your clips out of the inside, the plastic clips that we were already pulling off before, and then it is held in by another series of 14 clips, I think I read, along here. I just took the other side off, and what I did was I used a plastic trim tool to get in, pull back, and get in here, so I'm not going to damage the paint. And then I just need to get it started. And once we get pulling, there are two clips that go forward right here. We're just going to pop it back and pop it carefully out here. There's going to be another one down here, like that. Here's those two clips I mentioned, and pop it forward. Now we have access to our bolt on the corner. This is a 10mm for the bumper skin, and then we need to get our bolts out of the frunk area as well. Now, the repair instructions show taking this whole thing off, but I'm trying to mitigate any plastic breaking that I can, so I'm only going to take so much off. All right, clips back. This big connector here, you got to pull the red tab back, get your finger in there, and then you got to be able to pull hard enough. Just all going to depend on the angle that you can get to it from. That should be everything. We're going to have some clips in here and clips, I think 1 or 2 under here, and then right here as well. I've got some dry silicone lube. I like to, whenever I can see a clip, I try to get something on it. Okay, one clip, one clip. So what we want to do is,
That's rocks. That's we're good.
not let this come up onto the paint. So you hold this side.
Got it.
There it is. Man,
Those are strong.
yeah, they are. Just holding that sucker in place.
Yeah.
All right, you hold that side.
Okay.
That side was just much stronger than this side. All right, straight back. Now we can
Nice.
get to that sensor. Nice, it's popped out.
Well, that was fun.
In order to get to our condenser assembly, we've got to get the active grill shutter off. That's the part up front here that opens and closes to help with aero when you're not using AC or it doesn't need to cool it. To do so, we've got a bunch of clips here across the top, 2 clips on the side, a bunch more clips underneath. So we'll start by pulling the cover here off of our ambient temperature sensor so that we can get to the harness inside. So you have to close your eyes,
Use telekinesis.
feel it, and pop it out. So here's what it looks like. I'm getting my fingers in there on this tab, pushing that tab, used my other finger to pull on the cable to pull it back. So we'll just pick this up, leave that there for now. Now our active grill shutter is this connector here. We have another red tab we have to pull back. And as I'm doing this, I'm finding that a pair of pliers works better than my old fingers to try to grab it. Everything under here is covered in a nice thin layer of sand.
Or not so thin.
Or not so thin in some cases, yeah. There we go. Another case of push, pull, push, pull, push, pull until it comes off. So these tabs across the top, we're just gonna pop them open by putting a flat blade or a tool of some sort in there while pulling back gently. And don't put a lot of pressure on little plastic tabs like this, because the further back they go, the more likely they are to break.
And they're plastic, so they're very likely to break.
Now let's be honest, this isn't a BMW, so it has that going for it. If this were a BMW, there's 2, 4, 6 of those? 4 out of 6 of those tabs would have broken, almost definitely. So now we've got 2 more plastic clips here. You're gonna squeeze these in and pull up.
And they would not only break, but they would also cost $3 a tab.
At BMW. So I'm just squeezing those little tabs with my pliers and then pulling up. There we go. Now we're half loose. We're gonna go back up to get to the bottom. Underneath, we've got those same pull tabs. We've got 3 and 3, so 6 on the bottom for our active grill shutters. Now, one thing to bear in mind is this thing is already full of debris under there. So when you go to pop these loose, put some super squint protectors on there before all this falls in your face. Because odds are, I recognize you're probably laying on the ground doing this, so it's gonna be a little bit more difficult. Judah is gonna push up right there while I'm pushing on these guys. Trying not to hurt myself. There we go, that's working much better. Switch sides. Just a gentle pry. Oh yeah. So much stuff coming out of there.
Oh,
Okay.
this is
Okay.
really bad.
This is the shot. This is the shot right here. I hate to use the terminology money shot, but wait for it. There's
That's
so much
gross.
stuff in there. Okay. Now, this is going to be the point where most people get stuck, and in all of the videos that I've watched, people are getting stuck with, you can't get the grill shutter out. That's because the repair instructions actually have you lower down the whole cooling module. There are 2 bolts, one right here and one right here that we need to take out, and then we'll be supporting the fan across the cross member here. Oh yeah, look at that thing. Just loosening it lowered it down quite a bit. Let's start with that. All right, the repair instructions say to put a rag or something right here where the cooling fan is going to touch the subframe. I've got some foam pads that I'm going to try and see if those will support it to give me the most amount of room. What the hell was that?
Washer.
Oh, another washer.
Those were for the bolts. Oh,
Wow, there's so much debris in there. We took the 3 bolts off the bottom, the 1 bolt off here. That's given us a lot more room here on the ankle breaker. And what I'm trying to avoid is loosening anything up here and having to adjust our radar, because we do have an older car that still has radar in it.
there it is.
There it is, right in the face, right in the face. Oh, jeez. That's like at least 30 or 40% blocked.
That's definitely not good.
So earlier I mentioned that we were going to just call this a radiator, and I was thinking it was a condenser, when in fact it is actually a radiator. As I'm looking at the system, this has a heat pump with the octo valve and the super manifold and all the different things. And I think the more I look at this, the more I'm starting to understand that this is cooling and exchanging as though the condenser were in here in one of these coolers here. So this is in fact a coolant radiator, not a AC condenser. But regardless, in order to have an effective heat exchange, this thing needs airflow. And when we get up close, all of these fins up top are completely plugged through there. I mean, hair and fuzz and all sorts of things going on in there. I'm fairly certain that this is impacting this vehicle's ability to run efficiently. So I'm even more glad that we're going to attack this now. I want to get this grill cover off of the bottom here. I went ahead and I put my bolts back in the radiator support down here so that we're not leaning on the subframe. And from here, what we're going to do is try to get this guy up and out of the way. So as I'm looking at it, it looks like there's a tab here on the top and a tab here on the bottom. If I lift this, that comes off of there.
That's just
That
part
one
of the seal.
comes off of there, yeah. So it looks like I'm gonna have to cut this here and then fold this up out of the way. So I gotta get underneath and see how that comes off. So before I go down that way, let's get our shop vac, and we're gonna start pulling some of this stuff off of here. I was just looking at the Tesla parts catalog, and it actually, I'm considering just replacing the radiator. It's $300, and I know that I'd have perfect flow after that, but I suppose while we're here, we should try to clean it first. And it's so jammed up, I'm gonna have to try to vacuum it first. Okay, I recognize that 99% of folks out there, they're not going to take it this far. My radiator is still so plugged, I decided to pull the fan assembly off from behind. It's not designed to come off that way, but we noticed that these lines are not fixed lines. They're just O-rings with a clip. So we can rotate this whole module assembly, and we've got it supported by these straps. So now what we can do is we can try to blow all the debris out this way without blowing down and stuffing all that debris into our fan blade, which already got jammed up with rocks. And you can see all this stuff in here just from what we were messing with right now. So we want this fan to stay intact. We took it off. Now let's see what we can figure out.
Hold on. I think I found the inspiration for the wheels.
The wheels?
Yeah.
The turbine?
Uber turbine.
Yeah, somebody saw a fan and thought that would be cool. Oh my goodness. You can just see all the stuff coming out. Whoa. See it?
There's so much stuff it looks like water.
It does.
Taking the fan off was a good idea.
Yeah, we would have been just jamming this stuff further and further into the core, making it less and less efficient.
And into the fan.
So I've spent a whole bunch of time vacuuming and using compressed air to blow the radiator back and forth. There's still a bunch of debris in there, and I'm hoping that this stuff will help to break it down. This is foam coil. This would be used conventionally on home refrigeration systems to clean your coils outside. It says mild strength, max foam, neutral base. The neutral base is really what I'm worried about, is I don't want anything that's going to be acidic on the aluminum of the core. So we're gonna mix up some of this in my yard sprayer and get to town. It says mix it 6 to 10 parts water. I've got some water in here. for a light application. Let's go with that much. Ideally, we'd be doing this in the driveway where it's easier to get a hose or a pressure washer or something on here. I've got the car taken so far apart, I'm not going to even remotely try to move it. So I've got some buckets underneath, and we're just going to spray this guy down and go for it.
The foam isn't so foamy.
No, not in this way. I didn't buy a foam sprayer. I have one for my pressure washer, which might have worked. There was a ton of stuff coming out that didn't get caught by my little catch buckets. You'd see just how much stuff was just in the radiator. This isn't stuff that came out of any of the other panels because I took all that outside already. This was all inside that radiator, keeping it from flowing. You can hear it on the floor too. They just crunch, crunch, crunch everywhere. That bucket has a whole layer of sand on the bottom. It's like going to the beach. Look at all the sand and crap in there. Piece of plastic.
That is a lot of sand.
Stickers. Bunch of leaves. All right, well, we spent a long time flushing and blowing and flushing and blowing. And when you look at the core, it's definitely better. There's so much stuff all over my floor and in my mop bucket and in my drain buckets and blown out the door. It's definitely better. Would it be better with a new radiator? Yeah, but as I'm reading the instructions, you either have to have Toolbox 3 or Service Mode Plus, which I don't think we have Service Mode Plus on here. I don't know how you get that, but either way, you have to actuate valves and stuff to bleed and fill the cooling system, which I'm not going to try to do right now. I've only owned the car for a week. But this is definitely going to be a lot better, at least in my opinion. I've seen people use pressure washers on the radiator. At low enough pressure, that probably would work. I just don't like the idea of trying to force the dirt through there as much as I can try to push it out the backside. And again, 99% of you at home, you're not going to be taking the fan or anything off. So you're just going to be trying to clean it from the front. What I recommend is crawl underneath and spin that fan blade and make sure you're flushing all the debris out of there. Because like I showed you before, if you get stuff jammed in between this fairly tight tolerance, you're going to be in for an unhappy day, because I looked up the price on the fan and it's almost $500 compared to the radiator at $300. So I guess what we'll do next is we're going to just start slamming this thing back together. We got to get the fan in there and get everything remounted. And I don't know what to do after the fan goes in, but I'm going to figure it out as we go.
Do you want to do the YouTube snap in front of the car?
Yeah, I didn't show you how to take the fan off because you're supposed to take the radiator out, so we kind of fudged it to get it out the best we could. Probably not the recommended way, but probably the flat rate way. If there are any Tesla techs out there, tell me, would this be the flat rate way to do it, to replace the fan? So 1, 2, 3. I'm going to be the first to admit it because I know it's true. I definitely missed some things in this video, like showing you how to remove the fan. Now, at the end of the day, can you do this without removing the fan? Yeah, you can. But for me, I found that my radiator was so blocked up that it just made total sense to pull it out. So we'll leave the fan aside for now. Were there a bunch of other things that I could have done differently? Yes. Mainly, I was doing this because I feel like it's going to improve efficiency. So it would have made a lot of sense for me to do some sort of a simple drive and call it an efficiency loop, so that I could drive it and try to drive very similarly 2 times, once before and once after, and see if it made any difference. Now, honestly, do I care if it made a difference in efficiency? Well, yeah, a little bit. More what I care about is the thermal efficiency working better for that radiator, which there's even a test for that inside of service mode, and I didn't do that either. So there's lots of different things. Thermal test, I could have done a air test if I had an air gun that could measure the velocity of air pulling across there. Judah has said that it felt like it was going to suck him into the bumper. It was pulling so hard. So I believe there's air moving. The AC in the car works fantastic. I didn't check temperatures or anything to see if it works better now than it did then. So yeah, lots of things could have happened differently. Look, if you got anything out of this, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like and subscribe button. Come back for more Tesla content later as I do more DIYs at home on this car. I've got a referral code for Tesla down below. If you're looking to buy a car and you were just researching a little bit, that would really help me out, give you a discount as well. And if you want any of the products that I've used in this video, my Amazon links are there for your convenience. I do make a little bit of money off of those, and it doesn't cost you anything to support the channel. I really appreciate it again. Thanks so much for watching, and I guess, you know what? We'll see you in the next one.